Hi everybody, I'm Daniel Walthers, and I'm coming to you from Winding Woods Ranch here in Commerce, Georgia. Today I want to talk a little bit about the cage requirements that you would need for your raven or crow. Once you decide, hey, that's something I want to have, I guess the most important thing is what kind of cage requirements are there? What do you need as far as housing the bird? And indoors, you can actually use a very, very large macaw cage, which actually will work. The ravens and crows, I don't recommend that you clip their wings, so they'll need enough room to hop or at least fly a little bit to move around in that cage. And so it needs to be a pretty good sized cage, and usually either a decorative parrot cage or something with some size is best. Now outdoors, we use an aviary or a small flight. The one behind me is actually 4 feet wide, 8 feet long, and 8 feet tall. You wouldn't necessarily have to have one this big if you had just one bird as a pet. This is actually an outdoor flight that I use for the young birds. And the reason it's so tall is I like to teach the birds to fly up and down because I free fly a lot of my birds. And it's very difficult in the beginning for them to learn to go higher or lower as we fly them. So this cage I can walk into and actually ask them to fly to me, and they can come down or go up and learn that before we ever even go outside or do it loose. But what's nice about this setup is that I have it on cement, so it's easy to wash down. Their droppings are very loose, so you want to be able to keep it very clean if you can. If you can't put it on cement, what I do recommend is put it on the ground and pull some wire and attach the wire around the bottom of the cage and then put sand down. Now if you have a cover or something over the cage, you could always use shavings or even use alfalfa pellets, which are real absorbent and they're real safe. If they were to eat it, they'll be able to absorb it. It won't hurt them. But like I say, the key is to be able to get these guys outside and get sunlight and help their bones, because one thing that I do see, and I've seen over the years, is if they don't get enough calcium and don't get enough sunlight, their bones can be a little brittle, and we don't want that. We don't want to have problems with fractures or breaks and stuff like that. So it's like us, you know, it's good for us and healthy for us to get out and get some sun. So these are young birds that are out here this morning, and you can see them just kind of hanging out. And I make sure they get about 6 hours at least of sunlight. We're on the side of the building that gets morning sun, so it's not real hot. Since I do have a hose here, I can mist them and keep them nice and cool, or if I want to bathe them, we can bathe them. And it works really, really well. If you want, we're going to take a look at the end over here where you can see that we have a smaller door. You can see the door is half the size of the whole end, and we do that so they'd have to actually fly down to come out. Now you could put chain on the inside so they couldn't fly through, or you could put plastic strips and overlap those strips, and that way they couldn't come out either, and that works very well. But as you can see, they have plenty of room, and it gets them outside, and it gets a lot of that sunlight that they need to really thrive and do really, really well. So if this is something you think you could do for the birds, then I think a raven or crow, you know, could be the bird for you. As far as height, usually 6 feet tall, depending on what you're going to do with the bird, is plenty. That way too they don't get above you, and they're a little easier to work with if the cage isn't quite as tall. Like I say, I do it so I can teach them to fly down and fly up. I think it really helps me later when we're free flying them outside. I hope this was helpful, and I hope it answered some questions as far as caging and what type of cage you should keep the birds in. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again soon.